Well, training camp is over, and this is the last preseason game. So let's preview the upcoming game against the Titans and the Pats after the intro. Welcome back. Glad to have you. I'm your host, Bonafide, and this is From the Cheap Seats. This week's episode is going to be an abbreviated one because we play on Friday night, and this is going to wrap up the preseason and our training camp for 2023. So let's jump right into it. So before we get into it, and before we start talking about things like that, I want to send my thoughts and prayers to Caleb Farley and his family during this, horrific tragedy that he suffered. He lost his father in a house explosion over the past week. And we're praying for you. We want to make sure that, that we send in, light and love your way. And that with you, all the Titan Nation is with you and we're supporting you. So we hopefully, he takes time away. The organization already said they're going to do everything they can to support him in this time. And we as fans should be doing the same thing. Thoughts and prayers to Caleb. Moving on, we were supposed to have joint practices with the Patriots this week, but as we mentioned in the recap, they canceled those because of the injury to Isaiah Bolden. He's out of the hospital now, he's doing better. So it kind of didn't work out for us. But what happened in replacement of that is Mike Vrabel kind of set up a blue and white scrimmage, kind of something like a college field for those joint practices we were supposed to have. And from all accounts and purposes, listening to the beat writers, that they really had the juice going. It was a couple of different plays that went on. Garrett, my man, showed up in those scrimmages, and I think for the most part, it really kind of energized the team. Kind of showed Mike, he even mentioned it in one of his pressers, that they were really ready for the season. The heat didn't even bother them. They were out there hyped up, celebrate one another. So really a good bonding thing. I think that was a good thing for Mike. Mike is he's an interesting coach. He does things a little bit differently, out of the norm than everybody does, and I think that works out well for him. Will Levis came back to practice. He was there today. He was there on Tuesday. He warmed up, but he didn't dress out, so he didn't really do it. He didn't participate in the scrimmage. But on today, he was dressed out, he stretched, he threw a couple passes. I think the Titans social media caught him dropping a dime, like corner ball in the 8 pocket, playing on the number. But yeah, it was a definitely good pass. So he's back, but I think it's still up in the air. Mike didn't even really give us any indications that who was going to be the quarterback for this game because, like I said, he wasn't a participant in the scrimmage, so we really don't know. Speaking about quarterbacks playing, again, Tannehill came to the presser today and talked about it and said he's indifferent, if he has to play on Friday or not. Like at this particular point, it's really no reason for them to play. The risk isn't worth the reward to have Tannehill and the starters or any of those starters come out and play. Sans the offensive line, but anybody, Hopkins or Henry, those reps aren't really going to matter at this particular point. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us in the end. And when we, take the field on September the 10th, it doesn't cause a lot of issues. So as I mentioned in the recap before, I would like to see Will Levis get the start, possibly with the first string O-line, just to see how he is, things like that. So we can do more evaluation on where he is and things like that. I'm saying this, and I'm pretty that this is just my own instance. If he does not play, it's pretty much safe to assume that Malik is going to be QB2 this season with Levis as QB3. It may change, who knows? But if he doesn't play or doesn't give opportunity to play, or if he does play and doesn't do well, it's just pretty much safe to assume that Malik is going to go into the season as QB2, which we kind of expected. There was a point in time where we thought there was maybe a little bit of, possibility there may be some competition, but the injury to Levis kind of deaded all that noise really after that point. So next segment that I got is like the last resort. Right now, it's the end of training camp. Roster spots are being solidified. We kind of know who's going to be where. A lot of the beat writers are giving you their 53-man projections and things like that, and they're pretty much in alignment with one another. So this is really the last chance that some of these fringe players can make and make a splash and, show up on the radar or pop off, things like that. I don't really know who that player is going to be. I got a couple of candidates of people that are fringe players that may be making the roster, this 53-man roster. Thomas Odakuya, I hope I'm saying his name right, but he's a tight end that came through the International Players Program. Mike raved about him at the last press and said we lucked up into him, that he's a guy that does all the things right, things like that. I believe, again, another podcast that I listen to all the time, Music City Audible. You've heard me talk about this podcast enough that you should already be following their channel. I'm gonna put the information in the description, but you should already be watching Music City Audible and getting up there, because Justin Mello, not Justin Graver, but Justin Mello was on that podcast, and he did an interview with Thomas a few months back, and he was high on him. So to see this continue on lets us know that he's a pretty valuable player, and hopefully we can see him make this man. I mean, one of the blocks that he gave during that Vikings game it was nasty. He just So Mike likes that. So hopefully that he makes the squad. Kearis Jackson. Now Kearis Jackson is a wide receiver that's on the fringe, but I think where he shows up at is on the return game. In the Vikings game, before he got hurt, he had a few nice returns. Obviously you fair catch, you go to the 25. You down it, take a touchback, go to the 25. A few of his kickoffs, had it been a real game, probably would have been good, especially for field position. So he's a wide receiver, but he's doing the things on special teams. I like to see. I think he may be able to make the roster simply because there may be a spot opened up because of Kyle Phillips' injury, and not talking about a wide receiver spot, but the kick returner special team spot with that. So Kearis Jackson is one. Maybe if he's able to play, he was at practice, so he had a sleeve on. So if he's able to play, maybe he gets a couple of big returns. That maybe solidifies him making the 53-man roster as a special teamer. Eric Garrett. I'm gushing about this dude. Hopefully Eric Garrett hears this and knows that I'm the president of the Eric Garrett fan club, but I think he's probably, out of all of these players that I've named, has probably locked himself in as a very high chance of making the squad at cornerback, because his work on special teams, because of his work in the DB, in the secondary. So I think he's one of the ones that I believe. I'd be shocked if Eric Garrett doesn't make this team, simply because he seems like the player that we want on this squad, a sure-handed tackler, things like that. And then my last player that I think is probably right there, probably locking down one of these few final roster spots, is Caleb Murphy. That 2-sack game cannot be denied. He's a pass rusher. Even Big Jeff talked about how, he's a willing worker. He came to him after one of the practices to correct an earlier mistake. So he wants to be good. And so like I said, the 2-sack, giving the quarterback, if he's able to capitalize on that, probably will get more snaps this game. All these guys probably will get more snaps because they're pretty much still fighting for a roster spot. But if Caleb can get a couple more hurries, maybe get another sack or two, I think that will go a long ways in locking him down into this new role. So last segment, because this is abbreviated, we're on a short week, so we want to make sure we get this in and out. What's next? Wednesday was the last day of training camp, and Friday is going to be the last preseason game. So the next big day is what we all know is coming up August 29th, aka cut day. Some players are going to get released. Some players will be stashed on the practice squads. The roster churn won't be done though, because other teams are going to be doing the same things. And, we probably had our eye out on some players to see whether or not they get dropped, whether they get picked up, if they're stashed on the practice squad. Used to be able to save players on the practice squad that you wanted to keep. But now, because it's kind of basically you can't protect that many players, it's basically a free for all. So a player that you may have missed out on, or wanted to draft but didn't draft, you might be able to pick them up at this roster churn. And then that's all done. The roster churn will go for a couple of days after that, and then all eyes are set on September 10th in New Orleans as we open the season against Derek Carr and the Saints. And your boy is going to be at that game. So I'm gonna be on location. Do I get a press pass? Are we big enough to get a press pass? Somebody find it out. Probably not. So I'm probably just gonna be a regular fan. But yeah, definitely gonna be at the game. I'm excited about it. Gonna be in New Orleans on location for the first game of the season. So my closing thoughts. Hey, look, I'm 1-1 in my predictions on the preseason, so I'm warming up for the season. But I think we pull this preseason win out against the Pats, 28-14. I think we get big splashes from Caleb and Kyrus on the punt returns and kick returns. So I think we're going to get a game, but all counts of purposes, we're going to come out of here healthy and get the dub. So don't forget to tune into the next episode, where we're going to do a whole recap of this last preseason game, see if these players that we mentioned tonight on the last resort are going to make the squad or had performances that would let us know that they're going to be on the Titans roster for that. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this to your friends, your fellow Titans friends. I'm telling you, there is plenty room in the section for us all, okay? So make sure you tell your friends, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining us today. And until next time, tighten up.